in Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation.
Thank you.
Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of the land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. Notification that members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. And as well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be kept to a non-audible function during our council meeting. I'll now turn to a roll call for attendance, and I'll turn to Councillor Wilson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Farr. Haven't seen him as yet. Councillor Nan. I see you. Good morning.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Councillor Marula.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning. Councillor Collins.
Present.
Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Councillor Pauls.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Farr, I'll go back to you. Good morning. I see a thumbs up from you. Thank you. Councillor Danko.
I'm present.
You are indeed. Thank you. Councillor Partridge.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning. Councillor Vanderbeek.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning. Councillor Ferguson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Johnson.
Good morning.
Good day. And Councillor Pearson.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Present.
Good morning. Thank you. And Councillor Clark.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Madam Clerk, I'll turn to you for any changes to the agenda, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, good morning. There are 6 added communication items. 4.12, correspondence respecting the 2021 tax policy fire area rated tax changes. There with a recommendation to be received. Item 413, correspondence from Viv Saunders respecting Hamilton tax increments grants, with a recommendation be received and referred to the consideration of item 2 of the General Issues Committee Report 21-011. And there is one added bill today, Bill number 94, respecting removal of part lot control, 270 Melvin Avenue, Block A, registered plan number 62M-864, and that is in Ward 4. And those are all the added items for today. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Could I have a motion then to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Pearson, seconded by. Okay, Councillor Vanderbeek, thank you. Good to see you in the corner there. And electronic vote is required if there's no debate. Thank you. I'm not seeing any, so thank you for that. Please, Councillor Partridge, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a declaration of interest, but I would like to raise the issue of gypsy moths in Flamborough, and I'm wondering where would be the best time to do that. Would it be under Public Works or under other business?
Under other business or statement by members.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. So no declarations of conflict? I didn't see anything. Thank you. There are minutes of the previous meeting of City Council is May the 12th, 2021. You have the minutes. Any issues around the minutes? If not, a motion to approve. I saw Councillor Ferguson and second by Councillor Partridge. All good. Thank you. All in favor then, electronically. Appropriate for us to acknowledge the Chamber of Commerce identifying both our Community Emergency Services General Manager and EOC Director Paul Johnson, and Dr. Elizabeth Richardson as Distinguished Citizens of the Year for all the right reasons. I just want to congratulate them on, not only getting that acknowledgement, but for the great service they provided to our community always, but especially through this pandemic. So on behalf of all of you, I'm sure, and if anyone wants to chime in, feel free. But I just want to thank Paul and congratulate Paul and Elizabeth for this acknowledgement. I think it's well-deserved, well-earned. And hopefully, as we see our way through this pandemic, we can see the end in sight. And in large part, that assist has been as a result of the good work that Paul and Elizabeth have done for us in our community. So congratulations, Paul and Elizabeth. Well done. Bravo. You get a whistle from Councillor Jackson and cheers, and I see applause everywhere. So congratulations, Paul and Elizabeth. I'm not sure if I see Elizabeth here, but we will pass that along formally as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Did you want to say anything beyond that, Paul?
I'll just say it's humbling, as someone who calls Hamilton home, was born, raised, educated, has worked most of my career here. It's really special to receive this type of an award, and I can't think of a better way to do it than alongside my friend and colleague and Dr. Richardson. So it's we have worked very hard together over this past period. We've got more to do, but it's just very humbling, and all of the appreciative comments and notes that I've received, both inside the organization and from outside the organization, are really put a little wind in my sails. So it's great. You don't go looking for these types of things, but I got to tell you, as a pure Hamiltonian, it's a wonderful honor to receive.
All right, thank you, Paul. And I see Dr. Elizabeth, I see you pop up there. Feel free.
Much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you as well as Paul. Paul said it so well. It's been such an honor to serve, and to do that with Paul has just been fantastic. His leadership and wisdom is just so appreciated. And again, thank you to all that have sent the kind notes. It's been very, very nice to receive, and as Paul says, gives us a little wind to get through this next phase of the pandemic. So thank you.
Well, congratulations to you both, and onwards and upwards. There are better days ahead, so looking forward to that. Thank you. Councillor Danko, we need a motion from you on the communications, please, to put them on the floor. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pauls, that the May 26, 2021 Council communications be approved as presented.
All right, thank you. They're now on the floor, so any items of interest or communications that you'd like to speak to? I see Councillor Ferguson first up. And go ahead, Councillor, and then I'll take whoever else on different items. So your item is?
Yeah, take item 4.6.
Thank
It's a letter from the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks regarding the citizen appointees to the Hamilton Conservation Authority. And there was an amendment to the this Schedule 6 of the budget bill. And the amendment allowed us to go higher than 30% of the appointees to the board. But the city had to apply for this amendment, and that's the purpose that our letter went out to keep the current complement of 5 citizen appointees. I find it bizarre that they write back and say, well, write back and ask us again closer to the end of this term. Why the heck didn't you tell us that before we went to all the effort? Because they indicated some urgency when they wrote to the conservation authorities in the city to get their applications in early, and they promised a response within 20 days. And the response was, you're too early. Anyhow, I guess I'm okay with receiving this, but it just seems bizarre. That's all.
Okay, good points. Thank you. Councillor, anyone else on this same issue? Hearing not. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just on 4.8 from the Minister of Transportation, if City Manager Smith is there joining us, I just first of all want to thank her and commend her for her persistence in working in concert, Mr. Mayor, with your office to ensure that there will be representatives either from the Ministry of Transportation and or Metrolinx and or Infrastructure Ontario, whoever else coming to appear before City Council regarding questions still lingering in certain aspects of the LRT project in spite of the May 13th announcement of the funding. So first of all, I just want to commend City Manager Smith for her persistence in following through and getting the delegation before us sometime in June. Secondly, I did send an email to her, and just for public consumption for a few of my constituents, Mr. Mayor, City Manager Smith, if you recall, I asked you about, I read on page 2, the upper paragraph, where it says that already the 45-day commenting period has closed, but engagement with city and other stakeholders will continue. Can you just maybe for my constituents listening in, explain the difference so that no one, regardless of which way they feel about the project, no one can say, oh, Tom, you've missed a window of opportunity. Through you, Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, thank you for the question. So a couple of things. First of all, I can confirm that for the delegation, both the Assistant Deputy Minister James Nolan and Phil Verster, the President and CEO of Metrolinx, will definitely be delegating on June 2nd, and they may have others with them, but they both will be here. In terms of the reference in that letter, you may recall that when they were building a number of the transportation projects in Toronto, the province passed the Building Better Transit Faster Act, I think that's the order of the words, to help facilitate quicker construction of transit. And at the time the legislation was passed, it only covered those projects in Toronto, and I believe there's also into York Region. And so that commenting period related to a posted regulation to add the proposed, at the time, Hamilton LRT project under that act as well to facilitate the faster construction. So that's the commenting period that is closed related to that regulation, including the Hamilton LRT. That does not speak to the funding announcement at all.
Thank you, City Manager Smith, for clarifying, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And as City Manager Smith, supplementary, and if you're not prepared today to answer, maybe you could just take it under advisement for June 2nd. Again, when the delegations appear, obviously, as everybody will recall, from the Mulroney announcement and before the Christmas of 2019 for the cancellation, thereafter in the following budget year, there was some savings, obviously, in council's desire to close the LRT office in light of the cancellation announcement. So City Manager Smith, as part of their delegation, would it be an appropriate question, Mr. Mayor, to ask if the LRT is approved by council going forward on the O&M and any other outstanding issues? Will the LRT office then be reconstituted? How will it be reconstituted? And who would pay for staffing to come in? Or would it then be entirely within the bailiwick of Metrolinx? Mr. Mayor, through you to City Manager Smith, and if she doesn't have an answer today, that's fine, but maybe at least she gets the essence of what I'm asking. Through you, Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, that's certainly something we can confirm when they're there, but I believe it would be similar to the last project in that there would be required to have an office at the city funded by Metrolinx, and that's certainly something they've done for other similar projects similar to the Mississauga-Hurontario LRT.
Thank you, City Manager Smith. And Mr. Mayor, again, to your office and to the City Manager, I will say pleasantly surprised that they've agreed to appear next month. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. On this topic, anyone on the same topic? Oh, Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. There's 4.12 from A to O. With respect to the tax policy on fire area rated, excuse me, tax changes. I know this was deliberated at length at committee, but not at council, so there may be a different audience checking in. And I was wondering if I could, through you, if Mr. Zagaric is available, if he could just provide a response to this of the outcome of it, and maybe in his response speak to some of the concerns if possible.
So we could, I just wonder if it's not more appropriate to do with, and when we do with the General Issues Committee report on this matter. As you know, the
Absolutely. If
item
that's your direction, I'd be happy to take
item
it.
413 has also been referred to that item as well, so speaking to the same issue.
Okay.
So, Madam Clerk, are we appropriate in that sense?
Through the mayor, I believe that was the last council meeting where that was approved, that item. It's just the bill that's before you today.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if we're not dealing with that similar item, then your questions would be appropriate, so go ahead.
My question, I've posed my question. If Mr. Zagaric missed it, I'd be happy to repeat it, but I'd spare my council colleagues.
Yep.
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I think I understood the councillor's question. So the communications that are before council today stem from our tax policy report, and council members may recall that through the tax policy report, we staff presented some shifts as it relates to the fire levy for 2021 that included some shifts across the urban and rural boundaries. The communications that are before you today raise some questions with regards to those boundaries stemming back to 2011, when at that time council took a position on amending the area rating of fire services. Previously was area rated by former municipality to area rating fire services to a urban rural boundary. Again, the communications that are before you today raise some questions with respect to the boundary and how some properties, I believe principally in Lancaster and Waterdown, are being captured for the purposes of the fire levy and area rating. So staff we have already initiated reviewing those maps dating back to 2011, recognizing at that time in 2011 it was a very deliberate effort to try to capture composite stations. And for the benefit of viewers and as a reminder to council members, the area rating of fire is based on services and service levels provided, and as well as the cost of those service levels. In the case of composite stations represent a combination of career firefighters and volunteer firefighters. We deliberately identified that there would be changes year over year, and we tried to capture that through the area rating model and how we capture the tracking of those responses and the financial consequences of those changes year over year. So again, short answer is staff have already initiated reviewing those 2011 maps in part based on questions from the community. It will take some time to review those maps. It will take a coordinated effort of not only corporate services staff, but will require some IT support around mapping and GIS as well as Hamilton Fire. So through you, Mr. Mayor, again, we are committed to review and we could report back, but if it's the will of council, there could be a referral of this item back to the General Manager of Finance and Corporate Services if you want to properly track this item.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm intentionally muting myself because my allergies are so brutal.
You and me both. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that thorough response, Mr. Zagaric. The last part in the work, the due diligence work that staff is doing, so that's going to proceed regardless. I'm just not sure I'm clear on that last part.
Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, it wasn't part of our work plan, but recognizing the interest from the community, we have initiated the work, and I should have also captured that this work will likely not be limited just to fire. We'll likely review some of our other area rated services, principally recreation, and just confirming that that model is accurate. If we discover there are any issues with respect to how we currently capture and report, we would come forward with some recommendations in year in 2021 or 2022 prior to the final deliberations of the 2022 budget. Again, we would bring forward those recommendations to committee and council for your consideration. I should also mention with respect to, in case there are questions with respect to transit, the approach with respect to transit area rating is it was contingent upon receiving the re-envisioning. So again, while area rating of transit is on our work plan, it is subject to the re-envision exercise, which has been delayed because of the pandemic. So again, subject to that preliminary work being completed, then we would report back on that issue at a future date as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Excuse me.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Yep, thank you. And I thought this was going to item 2 as well, so my apologies, or I would have spoken up sooner. So through you to Mr. Segarek. Mr. Segarek, we had 4 appendixes given to us to vote on at the last council meeting. It was rural fire, rural transit, no transit, urban fire, you know the 4 that I'm referring to. It's my understanding, though, that these appendices, and it's all under Appendix B, the numbers are not accurate. The numbers are not what they seem to be. So instead of it being 4% now for Glanbrook in some areas, it's 6.8%. So I really want to get some clarity on this. And to me, this poses as a huge, huge problem. And this is where all the information going out into the community is circulating. So I really need some clarity on this, please.
Thank you. Mike?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe what Councillor Johnson's referring to is the overall tax burden for 2021, right, inclusive of budget impacts and area rating. I believe it does impact wards. I know it impacts Ward 10 and 11. I don't know the specific areas of 11. I could invite Brian McMullen to the conversation. I know he is attending council today in case he is familiar with the exact geographic areas within Ward 11 that are impacted by the shift from rural fire service to urban fire service. I believe that's what Councillor Johnson is asking.
Yeah, and so just to be specific here, because Winona and Mount Hope are very similar, and we've got urban transit, urban fire, and that is page 1. 2 is rural, no transit, rural fire. Page 3 is urban transit, rural fire. Page 4 is rural and rural. So my understanding was that the numbers that were given to us, when you add it all up at the end of the day, the average impact is not the same. So instead of it being 4%, 1.6%, it's all over the place, that it's actually quite high.
Okay. Mike, or is it Brian on the call?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I can start, and then if Brian has a better appreciation for the specifics as it relates to Councillor Johnson's ward. So again, those tables, just as a reminder, those are averages across both the urban and rural, and it will vary from property to property. And for that reason, if there are some specific geographic areas within Ward 11 that the councillor is asking that may be experiencing a shift from rural fire to urban. So again, the 6.8% reference is for those properties who are experiencing a shift. They are now receiving a higher level of fire suppression services and consequently find themselves now in that urban fire levy boundary or district. And in addition to the fire impact, is our traditional budget impact as well, and that represents the 6.8%. But I see Brian's joined us through you, Mr. Mayor. I would just invite Brian in case he knows of the specific properties Councillor Johnson may be having.
Thank you, Mike. Just to clarify with what you just said, please, Mr. Mayor. So what you're saying, Mike, is that these 4 appendices that we voted on, Appendix B, the 4 attachments that came with it, is not specific to the increase that's happened with the composite. This is just an overall, this is how much it's going to be as an average in that area going forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
It's not specific.
through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. We provide that to provide some sense to the community and councillors as to what to expect. But again, the rural average and urban average are the averages across those two. And you'll recall in those tables are ward-specific assessment value averages. So we provide that information just to provide councillors and the community a sense as to what they can expect as it relates to, in this case, 2021 tax impacts.
Okay, thank you. So the questions that we're asking are for clarity relative to the information that was in the communications. So we're not going to have a debate on this one, but we are asking for clarity on the issues raised in the communication.
Yes.
So
And thank you. Yeah, you're right, Mr. Mayor. And the reason being is that we have a lot of public information out there right now shouting that they're getting 6.8%. So I think that's really clear to make sure that people understand it's 950 homes in Glanbrook as opposed to 4,000 in Ward 10, over 4,000 in Ward 10 that are going to 6.8. The average across everywhere else is what these four appendices are referring to. And that's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, and well clarified, actually. Brian, anything to add on that?
No, sorry. Through the mayor, Brian McMullen, Director of Financial Planning, Administration and Policy, Corporate Services. Similar to what Mike said, the tables that are part of Appendix B in the original report are the averages. And when we reapproved or approved the amendments at Council on May 10th, that Appendix B was not specifically amended and approved. We approved and amended Appendix A, which was the new reduced fire levy.
So through you to Brian, one last question. Could you please send us the amended Appendix B, please? That would be very, very helpful. Because I think that's what I was understanding. That's what we were voting on.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just to be clear, this is going to be reviewed and greater clarity provided in terms of the impacts that we're seeing in terms of the fire service. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the communications that are before you raises some questions with respect to the boundaries that were defined back in 2011. And so we'll revisit those boundaries and how they were defined. If we identify any issues that warrant some reconsideration, we would bring that forward to a future committee and council meeting, likely in late 2021 or early 2022, but before the completion of the 2022 budget deliberations.
Thank you. And so it would be appropriate to refer these communications to you for future follow-up in terms of the work that you're going to do.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay. I'll turn to Councillor Pearson and then Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and certainly I want to thank staff and Councillor Brenda Johnson for catching ahead of me on this one, because I want to raise the same concerns, and I do want to thank Brian McMullen and Kirk Weaver, I think it is, has been trying to assist me in just getting clarity for residents. So I know we've all, as far as Councillor Johnson and myself, have received the emails of, fix the boundaries. So I just want to reiterate, I don't believe there is any inaccuracies in the boundaries in Ward 10. It's all become an urban area. So understanding this is going to be referred for staff to complete that review, I appreciate that. But I too, as Councillor Johnson has raised, my concern is the charting. So I do know, and Brian's reaffirmed, we did receive on May the 3rd the new tax impact for Ward 10 and 11. I received the email that set out it's 4.7%. So what I've asked though is that I want to know what the exact increase for the fire rating from going from rural to urban is for all of the wards, so that I have consistent information. And I've been asking for that. So I'm hoping that through you, Mike, and Brian listening, I did put a call into Kirk yesterday. He gave me some information, but it's not what I'm after. And I'd like to get an idea of why. So Ward 10 is 4.7% just for fire rating, is pretty well double everyone else. What's constituted that much increase for Ward 10 and Ward 11? Those were my questions that I have not been able to directly ask staff other than through an email and get the answers to. And I'd like that so that I can put something together for the residents so they understand it. So I'm just going to leave it at that because this is going forward, and the review, and I appreciate that review. And it's interesting because, this is where I think the residents now in the suburban areas will see where area rating has a huge impact on the bottom line of our taxes and service that we receive. So thank you for allowing me to speak on that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I still rue the day that area rating was put in place because it's been nothing but a nightmare. But notwithstanding that, we have to, fix some of these anomalies as we go forward. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mike, as you can expect, the road councillors have had their inboxes and telephones ringing as a result of when this went public.
Councillor, your audio
which is good.
Your audio is a little shaky, so you might want to turn your video off. It might be helpful. There you go.
I'll start again. I'll quickly go through it. As you could expect, the rural councillors are getting lots of calls, but more emails. As Councillor Pearson said, or Councillor Johnson said, is fix our boundaries. And I never realized that was an issue. There may be some misinformation out there, but the part that I'm just struggling a bit with the answer to, Mike, is that area rating is supposed to be based on the service that the different areas receive. And there's three types of service. There's the career, there's a composite, and there's the volunteer. But when you do the area rating calculation, it's urban-rural. How do you balance that when there's only two categories for how you assess urban-rural, but there's actually three levels of service provided?
Thank you.
Yep. So through you,
it's a little beyond the communications item, I have to admit, but go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll try to be short. I'll try not to recap the 2009 deliberations. At that time, we did contemplate a three-band boundary for fire and identified some of the administrative burdens of having three bands, recognizing volunteers, composite, and careers. Short answer, Councillor Ferguson, is that we do capture that. We capture the response of career and volunteers based on the tracking of that information from Hamilton Fire Services. We do allocate those costs consequently to each of those boundaries. So in the case where volunteer firefighters respond to a property or a issue in the urban boundary, we attribute those costs. I referred earlier that each year those responses vary, and so we try to blend that in part through the model through a 5-year period. So again, to the councillor's question, yes, there are two boundaries. Yes, there are effectively three different levels of service: career, composite, and volunteer, but we do try to capture the level of service by the information Hamilton Fire provides us as it relates to how those resources are dispatched.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if I'm the last speaker, if you're looking for a motion to refer these correspondence items to staff for a report back in the 2022 budget, I'd be happy to move that.
Thank you. I think that's the right thing to do, and I think Councillor Johnson wanted to second that. So on that motion then, on the communications, we'll make that change. So that's a direction, then we can add the change. If there's no objection, the change will happen. I see no objection on that, so thank you. Any other items in the communications? Not seeing any. So on the communications, there's been a mover and a seconder. As amended, all in favor? Electronic vote is up. Selection Committee for agencies, boards, and subcommittees report.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if we could go into committee of the whole first, please.
Oh, I did miss that, didn't I? Councillor Danko, a motion to move into committee of the whole, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pauls, that council move into committee of the whole to consider the committee reports.
All right, thank you. All in favor of moving into committee? Committee, please.
Sure. That the Selection Committee Report 21-003, being the meeting held on Monday, May 10th, 2021, be received. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pearson.
Great, thank you. Any comments or any issues on that? If not, we'll go directly to a vote to approve. Thank you. All in favor? On the Board of Health report, please.
The Board of Health Report 21-005, being the meeting held on Monday, May 17th, 2021, be received. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Nan.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions on the report? Any items? Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If it would be appropriate in the information section, if you recall, staff gave a presentation last week under G of the information section, the overview of the COVID activity in the city of Hamilton, and with the outdoor amenities that were opened finally by the Ford government going into the Victoria Day weekend. I just want to say, Mr. Mayor, for a long weekend, a holiday weekend, and given 15 months of the worldwide plague, I did not have a single constituent complaint, concern shared. It was just a breath of fresh air. So many of my constituents driving through the ward, seeing along the parks and trails, all the amenities, the courts being used, which was wonderful, the stairs now in their entirety. All I had was 2 or 3 questions from those athlete types that like to use the Ray Lewis track and field at Mohawk Sports Park. And I've been asking Director Chris Hersteck of Recreation, and apparently EOC is exploring it. So, Mr. Mayor, if either General Manager Paul Johnson, oh, there he is, just a quick question to those interested athletic types that want to get on the $800,000 brand new Ray Lewis track and field at Mohawk Sports Park. Is that open? Will it be open, Paul? Are there some logistical reasons why that wasn't part of the weekend's outdoor amenities that the Ford government opened? That's my question, Mr. Mayor.
Paul Johnson.
So through the mayor, because we're still in the stay-at-home order, there is no training or allowed. So the opening of the amenities was to allow for some recreation to occur, but not for training and those types of things. So those locked facilities would remain closed. They will start to open as we go through the steps of the reopening from the province. But at this stage, in terms of last weekend, this was really to get some of the outdoor courts and the other amenities, and obviously the splash pads, which came as a pleasant surprise on Friday afternoon. It was to get those open. So there will be just a little more wait until we can get back to allowing people to do the training, and then those high performance facilities will begin to open up as well.
That's great, Paul. I will tell the athletic types from the East Mountain to use the multi-use trail along the Mountain Brow Boulevard instead, Mr. Mayor. And Paul, congratulations and huge commendation. You said in an answer to my question last Wednesday at GIC, you said, Councillor, if the announcement comes before the long weekend, we will be ready. You were. All the amenities were open. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, great work again by our Public Works staff. They did a great job of getting all those facilities open literally within a day. So I think that made a lot of people happy in our community. And I think members of council were happy about it too. We're all looking forward to better days ahead. So thank you, Paul, and the entire team at Public Works that did a great job of getting that. Culture and Rec, actually, as well. Thank you for that. I see no further questions on the Board of Health report. So all in favor of the Board of Health report, moved and seconded by Wilson. Works Committee report, Councillor Van de Beek, a motion on the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Nan, that Public Works Committee Report 21-007, being the meeting held on Monday, May 17th, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. Thank you, sir.
Right, thank you. I see that Councillor Pearson has a comment on item 6 in Public Works. Councillor Pearson.
If we could just get a seconder, Mr. Mayor, please.
I'll second it.
I thought I heard Councillor Nan.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No
Thank you.
problem. Sometimes my hearing is not great, but I got it.
Okay, good.
Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on item 6, Mr. Mayor, this is a motion I moved and had the tremendous support of the committee. It's with regards to the reduction of speed limit on the North Service Road. And I got a number of emails and calls after this was approved. I'm not sure what was written in the media, online, etc. But I just want to clarify for residents, this speed limit reduction is only from about 540 feet east of DeWitt Road to around the bend at Bayview West Park and to Fruitland Road. This is absolutely in concert with the development of two major housing developments going forward, the Como and Mist. And in that particular area, there's going to be, and it's the developers putting it in, as a pedestrian access light for the residents to cross over to the park, crossing the North Service Road, an island, etc., and cross markings. So in the interest of safety, this was most appropriate to put 40 kilometer in there, and just to slow the cars around as they come around the bend. And understanding, Mr. Mayor, for my colleagues and viewers as well, that on the North Service Road, I still have transport trucks and, casino buses when they're running. A number of them use the North Service Road. So it was a major concern of them going around this bend and not being able to stop in time if they haven't already slowed down. So I want to thank my colleagues for the support of this, and it's very, very, very much needed. Thank you.
Great, well explained, thank you. Any other comments on any items in the Public Works report? It's been moved by Councillor Van der Beek, seconded by Councillor Nan. All in favor then? Or opposed? Planning Committee report. Councillor Danko, a motion on that report to get it on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Johnson that the Planning Committee report 21-008, being the meeting held on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions on the Planning Committee report? Not seeing anyone in the chat.
Councillor Danko has an amendment for item 5.
Sorry, should have read further. Councillor Danko, go ahead with an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just bring that up. This is amendment to item 5 of the Planning Committee report respecting report PED 21104, application for approval of a draft plan of condominium for lands located at 270 Melvin Avenue. And it's my understanding this is a housekeeping amendment recommended by staff for just some modifications to the language about the agreement with the developer. So if I could just go to staff to explain, and I'm not sure who would second this, maybe Councillor Marula, as it is in Ward 4.
Thank you. Everyone understand the changes? Not seeing anyone nodding negatively, so I think we can move forward on this. So on that item then, on a separate item as an amendment, all in favor? The report? Not seeing any indications then, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor or opposed? Vote. Here on item 5.5, General Issues Committee report of May 19th. Councillor Danko, a motion to put it on the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pauls, that the General Issues Committee report 21-011, being the meeting held on Wednesday, May the 19th, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. And while I have the floor, could I just ask that item 8 be separated for a separate vote? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You want to turn to item 8 right now. So do you have comments on it or just a separate vote?
No comments from me anyway. Just a separate vote, please.
All right. So on item 8, then I'm going to look to members of council for a mover. Don't need a mover. We need we just need to vote on item 8 separately. So all those in favor or opposed to item 8, please indicate now. Members of council, sorry, I just see, I should look at my chat. Councillor Clark first off, and then I said Councillor Jackson. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the item I just wanted to briefly speak to was item number 4, the COVID-19 virtual memorial wall. I wanted to thank our staff and specifically Director Grant, our communications director. We had a number of phone calls to understand the type of virtual memorial wall that I had in my mind when I moved this motion. And they were able to, Mr. Mayor, find the ways and means to ensure that we can do this without any privacy breaches or risks of identity theft, et cetera, et cetera. The memorial wall is up, and there's already 7 people who have memorialized in Hamilton Remembers. And I just encourage residents to go to the Hamilton website, hamilton.ca/COVID virtual memorial, and you can get to the wall. It looks fantastic to our staff, and it's what I had envisioned. And I'm so pleased that we're giving this opportunity to families to celebrate the lives of their lost one, who of lives lost as a result of COVID-19. So I really want to thank staff for their efforts. It looks fantastic. Thank you so much, sir.
And thank you for raising it in the first place. I think it was a great initiative, and glad to see that staff followed through. And I'm sure it'll be a great opportunity for some in our community that want to memorialize their lost ones through this COVID process. And as I mentioned earlier, I think maybe at some point we might want to think of a more physical memorial once COVID is gone and past us. Hopefully we can think about that in the future. But thank you for your effort on this. Councillor Jackson on this topic? Nope. Okay. Anyone else on this topic? Okay. Councillor Jackson, you're up.
Mr. Mayor, just item 7, the 2021 Grey Cup update, and our director, Carrie Brooks Joyner, is overseeing this file. And I've already, as a word is starting to seep out again about the resumed CFL season of a 14-game season and the Grey Cup for December 12th, I believe it is here in Hamilton. I've already had some constituents advise me that they have purchased already their seats for Tim Hortons Field for the Grey Cup. And so, Mr. Mayor, I guess my only comment is that maybe we can continue to have this item front and center. Obviously, a lot depends on the league, but obviously with us being the host city, hopefully this year for 2021, I think our community will be ready for an enormous party of some kind, all things done safely and hopefully well past the pandemic, and as many people as possible vaccinated. So I just, all I want to say, Mr. Mayor, is there's cautious excitement from already people that are contacting me to say they've bought tickets for the Grey Cup. And let's hope the event unfolds here in Hamilton. And just to maybe keep this item front and center over the next month or two as we're moving towards the startup of the season in the summer. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I believe it'll be on the outstanding business list for the General Issues Committee report, I think, ongoing. So I think we'll continue to get updates as the potential season evolves. So looking forward to it as well. Any other items on the report? Not seeing any. Thank you. All in favor then on the report as a whole, General Issues Committee report? Thank you. And we're going to turn to item 5.6, which is the Audit, Finance, and Administration Committee report. Councillor Ferguson, a motion to put it on the floor, please.
Yeah, I'll just mute my video. So it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pearson, that the Audit, Finance, Administration Committee report 21008, being the meeting held on Thursday, May the 20th, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Thank you. Any items in that report that folks would like to speak to or lift? Not seeing any. Thank you.
I just like to, can I just speak to one, Mr. Mayor? I'll just leave my video off when I do this, but we had the report on the yield or the interest that we gained on our reserve funds and the future fund. And I just want to once again compliment our incredible finance staff. They got about 7% when a 2% inflation. So great investments and a great return for our taxpayers. So I just want to congratulate them. That's all.
Very good. Actually, a good return for sure. Thank you for that. And on the report as a whole, then, all those in favor? Electronic votes required. And the whole. So, Councillor Danko, a motion to rise and report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pauls, that committee of the whole rise and report.
Thank you. All in favor? Vote is up. Of motion, so statement by members. And I'm going to turn to Councillor Clark. Just reverse the order for a change. Councillor Clark, you're first up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to advise the residents in Ward 9 that construction season for us is really honest. The widening of Rymal Road is still happening, and so there are challenges there. Paramount will be rebuilt this year on the north side of Mud Street, and so you can see the fencing going up around the trees, so that's underway. And then Mud Street was to be done all the way to Centennial Parkway, but the challenge that we found, Mr. Mayor, is that with the Rymal Road widening still happening, we would have really restricted traffic flow through the ward if we did all of Mud Street and Rymal at the same time. So our staff came up with an ingenious idea of separating Mud Street out. So they're going to do from Isaac Brock to Paramount this year, including the bridge by Valley Park, and then next year they'll do the remaining part of Mud Street, and that way we won't impede the traffic flow so dramatically across the ward. So I wanted to thank staff for coming up with a creative way of fixing that. We were a little bit concerned that we were going to have traffic jams for the entire summer through the ward, and now we're not going to. So I really appreciate staff doing that, and I appreciate the patience of the residents as we go through this. If there are any concerns, they can always reach out to my office. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's everything for me.
Good point to make, that it is construction season and it'd be happening all over the city. So, the only way we can get this work done is through the construction season, and that ranges from now till October sometime. So, expect some delays in some areas, but hopefully traffic flow will still be moving effectively and efficiently. I know they always try to do their best to make sure that people can get to where they want to go. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to pass today. Councillor Clark raised the issue of construction, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually emailed our GM of Public Works, Dan McKinnon, my questions about the gypsy moth. Thank you, Councillor Partridge, for raising it, but I really had this whole list here. So is our GM from Public Works available to answer questions?
Don't know. Let's see if he is. And McKinnon, are you?
I gave him a heads up yesterday, so I hope I'm not blindsiding.
Then he should be. There he is.
There he is, with that Montreal. No, Montreal is all Toronto behind it.
Let's go. Oh, got them both.
Oh.
Oh.
And we're the politicians. I don't get it. So thank you very much, GM McKinnon. So just to give some context here, if anyone doesn't know what gypsy moth does, it literally covers an entire tree with like spider webbing. And it's to protect the caterpillar cocoons. And when the caterpillars are hatched, then it comes around and it devours all the leaves off the tree. So therefore it will kill the tree. So we're being inundated in Glanbrook, going from Bell Road all the way over to Dickinson Road, and I'm hearing all over the city. Some news reports are saying that municipalities are spraying for this. So I really want to clarify a few things, and we've been picking on your poor staff, trying to get all the answers, and maybe if we just did this for the public record, it would solve a lot of things. So, Mr. McKinnon, as far as spraying is concerned, my understanding is conservation authorities take care of their properties, but what about municipality and ministries? Do they just take care of their own property, or do they do private property as well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I've asked the intrepid Sam Scarlett to join us today, so we make sure that the message doesn't get confused through me. So I know Sam's on the call. If I could defer to him, I'll let him answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon.
Sam?
Good morning, Sam Scarlett, Manager of Forestry and Horticulture. Through the chair, so the spraying of by conservation authorities has been, to date, has been purely conservation property, and the Grand River Conservation Authority has sprayed this year. Hamilton Conservation is not eerily spraying. They're doing some egg mass scraping and some banding of trees as control methods because of the nature of where their infestations are. So the levels of control will range depending on the level of infestation, the spatial spread of that, whether they're isolated or it's widespread infestation. So in the city of Hamilton sprayed approximately 2,600 hectares of land, of city and private land in 2018, 2019, and the most recent spray before that was 2008. The goal of that spray is to not eradicate gypsy moth, but it's really to knock the peak of that population off and to control the numbers. And the target is to spray city-owned trees and naturalized areas and woodlots. In that, and through the method of application, through helicopter application, you do get a proportion of private land controlled during that, but it's certainly the target of previous sprays haven't been purely private property. They've been city property for city-owned trees and woodlots.
Okay, so thank you very much through you to Sam. And I'm sorry for boring, if this is boring for other people, but this is really detrimental at where we are right now. It's becoming almost epidemic. So Sam, because of the helicopter coming around and doing city-owned public lands, it thereby, just because of the sheer volume and the application, it then spills out into other private lands. That's why private owners are notified ahead of time, because this spray is going to end up on their property. Yeah,
through the mayor, the in previous sprays, and there are, as I previously mentioned, there is a range of control techniques. So the city's been monitoring gypsy moth through egg mass counts since 2015, 2016, and we do it annually. So we use that data that we collect in the winter to inform the program, which generally happens now as those gypsy moth will hatch. So and this is common through other municipalities and conservation authorities, is they will get by spray onto private property, and for the city to spray trees in road allowance or street trees, they do need to cover private property as well through that method of application, which through the helicopter. This year we are doing ground spraying in and around Freelton and some other select location. We've done egg mass scraping in May as well, and we will be banding some trees in city parks as well, where you put the burlap around the trunk of the tree and it stops the caterpillars climbing up. So the aerial application is just one method of control, but it will pick up private property. It has picked up private property in the past as well.
But just to be clear, it's not the aim to go after the private property. It is to do this public property, and it just by the application, it sprays onto, no pun intended, but it ends up spilling out onto other properties.
Correct.
Okay, so when you talk about the program, how can we feed that information to the program to get some of these areas addressed sooner rather than later?
So through the mayor, the control window for the current year is passed. For an aerial application, we require permits from the Ministry of Transportation, and there's several months in planning, and also to go through a procurement process to select an applicator as well. So we'd encourage residents to report to the city where they are having high infestations, and that feeds into our monitoring program, which will start this fall and winter. And then from that information, we can then come back to council early next year, Q1 2022, with a recommendation on control and type of control and area of control for consideration.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor. So it goes in the fall and the winter. We need to know months in advance. And just to let everyone know, these caterpillars that are dropping into people's backyards, it's actually creating rashes for the residents. This is not something that's, cute little caterpillar that's crawling around your yard. It's everywhere in your patio furniture, everything. So literally, they cannot step outside the door without worrying that their kids are going to be itching with rashes. So again, we do not address private trees. We address public trees only. And I want to make sure that's clear. Can we order property owners to spray? Can we order property owners to ban their trees to stop the infestation onto their neighbors? Case in point, we have a 12-acre woodlot out in Glanbrook, and it's shared between two property owners. One property owner said, that's great, I can do my side of the property, but if the other side doesn't get done, how does that help anybody? So can we order, like we do property standards, is there a provision in our Health Act or whatever you want to call it to get people to take care of their trees in order for it to stop that infestation everywhere else?
Through the mayor, I would have to confer with our municipal law enforcement colleagues to get a clear answer on that specific question around ordering neighbours under property standards. We do through hazard trees, but I haven't had an occurrence where we've done it through gypsy moth control to date.
Yeah. Okay, and I get it. We don't spray people's properties for ticks, and we don't spray them for mosquitoes. Larvae, etc. But in this particular case, it is very prevalent when you're even just driving by the property. You can see the mess, and then next year the tree next to it's going to be taken over because the one that they just killed this season is now going to be next season's victim, the next door neighbors. Okay, so thank you very much, Sam, and I'll take the rest of this offline. I appreciate everyone's patience in this, but trust me, if it's going rampant through the rural area, it will eventually get into the urban area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vanderbeek?
Nothing today, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Partridge?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'll certainly make up for the previous two speakers. I have an announcement about the Waterdown Market, which will be going to Waterdown Memorial Park, and it's starting this Saturday, 8 o'clock a.m. to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And all COVID protocols will be in place, but I encourage everyone to come out and support our farmers. Road closures, wow, similar to Councillor Clark's area. Center Road North and South, just on the outskirts of Waterdown at Nesbitt, will be closed for 3 to 4 months, north and south. So we won't be able to get access into Waterdown. Waterdown Road on the Burlington side will be closed for 8 weeks at Flat Road and Waterdown Road for a major water main replacement for all the development that will be happening in Burlington on the Waterdown Road side. Dundas Street in downtown Waterdown, just east of Mill Street, the CNCP bridge will be reduced to 1 lane for 6 to 8 weeks, and that will be in the summer as well. So folks, trying to get in and out of Waterdown is not going to be pleasant. It's already jam-packed with all roads open. So the suggestion is you have Snake Road, you have Highway 6, and you have Brant Street in Burlington to make your way north or south. So we have to get it done. It's been coming for a long time. The bypass is also going to be under construction, and that will be starting probably later on this summer. So lots going on. I want to thank Councillor Johnson for raising the gypsy moth issue. The caterpillars, you know, we're not just talking about a few, we're talking about thousands on properties. It has been from, you know, Flamborough Centre, which is right up at the 6th concession, all the way up past Burlington, all through the rural area. And it includes Carlisle. We've got them on our property. And the actual caterpillar contains a histamine. So when it lands on you, it is immediate. There are huge hives, welts, and, you know, if you're walking under a tree, you will have probably about 30 of them land on you just like that. They get into your hair. They're very small. They're only about 1 inch long right now, but they grow to about 3 inches long. And they have very severe spikes on them. So the birds don't eat them. The birds won't eat them because of the protection that they have with their armor. But they do devastate the trees, as Councillor Johnson's questions. But I want to talk to a couple of questions for Sam. I just want to make sure that I understand that the city staff will be bringing a report in Q1 of 2022 with recommendations for spraying. Is that what I heard? Sam, if you could please confirm that.
Mr. Scarlett?
Through the mayor, yes, we will commission a egg mass survey, which will be completed over the winter, and we will bring a report to council with our findings and recommendations in Q1 2022.
Okay, thank you. And to confirm, that will be coming to Public Works?
Through the mayor, yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have, though, Sam, is I'm hearing from residents that they are spraying in Burlington, and there's a real frustration out there with my residents. And I mean, I can't believe how many emails and phone calls we've received in the past few weeks. They are telling me that they are spraying in Burlington. So would you please confirm, is that the city of Burlington? Is that Conservation, Halton? Is it both of them? Have you spoken to them, please?
Mr. Scarlett?
Yes, through the mayor. So the city of Burlington is spraying a relatively small area this year, and they should have probably done it in the last few days, given because it's
yeah, they have
the weather conditions. So they will have sprayed. From what I understand, they're spraying a small number of parks and naturalized areas / woodlot areas. So they're not spraying large urban or suburban areas for this pest. It is just very targeted. Hamilton Conservation, I mentioned, has done some select controls and banding and scraping of the egg masses before the caterpillars would have hatched. I haven't touched base with Conservation Halton. I know that the GRCA has done some spraying over the last few days, again, of woodlot naturalized areas and their own properties. So it's very select, and that was the nature of our results from last winter as well. Was we had very, very isolated pockets of infestations, and just with, I think they've been aided this year with the weather conditions that we've had over the last couple of weeks as well, has really increased the growth and the hatch rate of these. It's important to note as well that there are natural controls on these populations, and one thing that we have been monitoring and with other municipalities who have spoken at length about these issues over the last 6 months is populations will peak every 8 to 10 years, and then they will naturally decline through there's a virus and fungus which affect the caterpillars when the population reaches a certain level. So we are keeping a really keen eye on that natural population collapse as well.
Well, Sam, thank you for that. I appreciate the explanation, and I would encourage you to reach out to Conservation Halton, because I think as many people know, my ward shares the border with Burlington all the way up to Milton, and it's heavily forested. So, there is, when Burlington sprays or Conservation Halton sprays, and we don't, then residents get very upset. There is the public thinks though that it is the city that sprays. So when Hamilton does spray, the public doesn't understand that it's only public land, and they think that the city is spraying all the rural area, including private properties. So how do we get that message out? How do we educate our residents? And I'm just wondering what kind of programs in place to get that message out there, because the public, they believe that when the city sprays, we are spraying the private properties as well. Any thoughts on that, Sam?
Through the mayor, yes. So as you'll remember, in 2018, 2019, we did spray Carlisle. We surveyed the street trees there, and we had a level of infestation which warranted, and also the distribution of the infestation warranted the aerial control technique. So we would have picked up private trees in that spraying as well. So in terms of communication to residents, we've put an awful lot of information on the city website around this pest. There's also videos on how to control and to monitor and these types of things. We can add wording around previous control methods. Previously, when we have done spray events, we have put a map on there as well to show, and that's part of our Ministry of Transportation permit application criteria, is to have a certain amount of communication with affected residents as well. So we're also utilising the city social media channels as well to inform residents about this pest and to really push what residents can do to control it in their yards around banding of the trees and also picking of the caterpillars as well. So we have really been pushing that message on our city website, and I encourage residents to visit that and to watch those videos and see the information around how to band those trees, because it is a very effective control of gypsy moth at this point.
Well, thank you, Sam. And I know that, by the way, congratulations on your CHCH TV debut on the news last night. You did very well. And it was actually some Flamborough residents that were shown there. And some of them are actually using duct tape, and they're putting the duct tape around the trees. Is the duct tape effective? And that's my last question.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, yes, it is effective. We recommend using burlap and twine folded over, and it's a very simple technique. The duct tape can have some unintended effects around those birds or other things that predate on like the caterpillars as well. So we do recommend the burlap method, although the duct taping method is around the tree is also very effective. But there's some informative videos on the city website about this.
Thank you, and I will be including the information in my newsletter that goes out. That goes to about 4,000 residents in Flamborough. Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Sam.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Danko.
Nothing from me this morning, sir. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, except for the odd minor isolated hiccup, your East Mountain community is safe and sound. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good to hear. Thank you. Councillor Nan.
Passing this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Farr.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And just a quick construction season update. It's a big one in Ward 2 this year and next year, so get ready for that. But in the north end, Strawn, the whole length of it, that includes the roads, the sidewalks, and the 5-meter wide pedestrian trail that was long planned for there. In central neighborhood, Mulberry Park, Olive Park, Coburn, Shafe, and adjoining Bay Street at 2 junctions, and Mulberry and James for a few weeks as well. This is extensive, and it starts tomorrow. Strawn very soon. Some play structure stuff. Eastwood will be opening soon. Some of the North End kids have been creative in getting through the hoarding now that it's erected, but there's still a little bit of work to do on the surface. And I think the kids are telling me that that needs to open as soon as possible. Central Park in central neighborhood, phase 2 of the massive rehabilitation of Central Park. That contract has been awarded, and the work starts very soon as well, bringing the multi-use court, the 2 dog parks, the new play areas, lots of space to kick a soccer ball to. And it's right next door, of course, to our latest and greatest community center, Bridgeworks, in that adaptive reuse just to the north and on the adjacent lands there. Hunter Street, the bi-directional work for anybody who has come to City Hall from the east side in the last couple of weeks, that continues and will be going on for a while, bringing that bike lane construction link finally to fruition, and safely actually putting in bike lanes to get you to the go from east or west. And in Durand and Corktown, more road and sidewalk rehabilitation to report for next season. And we do have in the Beasley neighborhood last council an approval for a professional assessment happening now in Beasley, and undoubtedly going to be bringing more future public safety infrastructure improvements to the already wonderful improvements we've made through millions of dollars worth of public budgeting and safe streets over the years. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but your video was off for all of that. We missed your smiling face throughout. Great presentation, but just not sure if you were aware that that was off. There you are. Okay, good to see you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Believe it or not, this is, you'd think this was a coordinated effort, but it's not. We've been in receipt in Ward 1 of some emails, and it is with respect to the gypsy moth control program. The RBG are undertaking a control program between May 24th and June 4th. So there's a low-flying helicopter. You're not imagining it. It's applying a total of 4 aerial sprays to mitigate the outbreak, and it will take place over RBG natural land properties of Rockchapel and Coots Paradise South Shore. So there'll be isolated spraying in those 2 areas. Additionally, the spray that they'll be using is a naturally occurring bacteria, BTK, that is found in the soil around trees. But if a caterpillar is at the top of the tree and eats it, the bacteria wins over the caterpillar. So I just wanted to add that, and also for those of us who love the RBG gardens, in the cultivated garden areas, the staff eradicate the egg masses just through hand removal, and they scrape the egg masses off the tree surfaces and they place them in soapy water. And just to echo Mr. Scarlett's comments about the burlap is very effective. And unfortunately, these creatures are honing in on our oak trees, which if you could build a perfect tree or make up a perfect tree, it would probably be an oak tree because of the many benefits that they provide for all of us. So that's very unfortunate. It's very concerning. But I just wanted to give Ward 1 residents that heads up. And if you'd like more information, you can find it on the RBG website. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And just to wrap up for me, I just want to acknowledge Paramedic Services Week. This is the week that we recognize the great work of our paramedics in our community, which we appreciate always. But through this pandemic, they have gone above and beyond in terms of vaccination and testing and providing vaccines for people that are shut in, or some of the outbreaks that we've received or had. And so they're doing their part to care for our community on an ongoing basis. And I just want to acknowledge their great work and the leadership of Chief Mike Sanderson and all under the Community Services Department of our Distinguished Citizen of the Year, Paul Johnson. So all of them coming together and doing some great work in our community to ensure that we make it as safe as it can be. And if it's not safe or someone gets injured or is harmed, that the paramedic services are there to help them get to critical care as required. So great work on their behalf throughout our pandemic, and day to day we count on our paramedic services to be there should we come into harm's way. And fortunately, we try to avoid that. But they're called to service all too often to make sure that people get the care they need. So thank you to our paramedic services and the great leadership there. Thank you for all the work that you do and continue to do as we work our way through this pandemic as well. I have no further statements from members, so I'm going to go to Councillor Danko, please, on a motion to receive the council communications updates. Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pauls, that council communication updates from May 7th, 2021 to May 20th, 2021 be received.
Thank you. All in favor of that? Please. Vote is up. Private and confidential, the appointment to the Hamilton Public Library Board for 2018-2022. If there are no disagreements with the appointees, we can move forward on that recommendation. See no argument against. So a motion to approve, please. Moved by Councillor Nan. So Councillor Nan, go ahead.
So I will move it to put it on the floor, and then I see we have some comments. So the appointment of the following citizens to the Hamilton Public Library Board for the remainder of the 2018 to 2022 term of council be approved. And do I name the two individuals through you to clerks?
As long as we're not having a discussion on them, yes.
Yes, you can name them.
Okay, it's Gagan Batra and Lynn Service.
Great. Thank you. And
moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pearson, who was there at the subcommittee. Yeah.
Thank you. So all in favor of that, please? And congratulations to them. I'm sure they'll be great contributors to the great And on the confirming bylaws, Councillor Danko, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, once again, seconded by Councillor Pauls, that the May 26, 2021 bills be passed and the corporate seal be affixed thereto and signed by the mayor and city clerk.
Great, thank you. All in favor? Take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Pearson, seconded by Ferguson. All in favor? One last electronic vote.